What's up, guys? My name's John, and welcome to my NEStalgiaholic show. And in this episode, it's going to be a little different than my other videos where I do reviews and whatnot. It's going to be like a vlog style video, and I want to talk about kind of differences of growing up. I grew up in the 80s, and I love growing up in the 80s. I wouldn't change my childhood or what I had growing up, my friends and the memories I had and shared. I wouldn't change it for the world. But I wanted to compare my growing up in the 80s to kids growing up today because there's a lot of differences, neither good or bad, just differences. And I just kind of wanted to share with you some differences between when I grew up in the 80s, early 80s, to with kids, where I see kids growing up today. So we'll start with phones, cell phones more specific. When I grew up, we didn't have cell phones. I remember in middle school, I had a pager. My mom gave me a pager in middle school, like seventh grade, and I was like the cool kid at school because I had a pager. Now you don't see pagers unless you're like a doctor or a drug dealer. But nowadays I feel weird leaving my phone at home. I feel like I can't go anywhere without my cell phone. Where back then it was no big deal. Do you guys remember the 1-800-call ATT ads that you'd actually have to call home collect, which I ended up doing multiple times? Or remember pay phones where you actually had to go and put in a quarter in for a pay phone? You don't see pay phones much anymore. Do people even dial collect anymore? I don't even know. But that's certainly one change. The next notable change is cartoons. When I grew up around G.I. Joe, He-Man, Smurfs, a ton of classic Scooby-Doo, a ton of classic cartoons, where today, and I might be a little biased, but I don't see the same appeal to cartoons as when I was a kid. Now, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with because I'm an adult, but what I'm referring to is just the animation style. You see a lot of cartoons nowadays are computer-generated cartoons. And some of them are good. I like the Clone Wars is good, whatnot. Now, no, they're not all computer generated. Obviously, SpongeBob is still hand drawn, and actually, I'll be honest with you, I think that's a pretty funny show. I've seen episodes, and it's pretty funny. I enjoy SpongeBob when I watch it with the kids, but other than that, really, I mean, the cartoons have changed quite a bit. Even the kids programming has changed a lot. When I was a kid watching, Sesame Street, they had the Oscar the Grouch, and he was grouchy, and then the Cookie Monster actually ate cookies, where now Sesame Street, it's all PC. Cookie Monster eats vegetables, doesn't eat cookies anymore. The Grouch isn't grouchy much anymore. They become oversensitive with things where I grew up normal enough. Why do we have to change it? It's kind of silly. The next big change I've noticed, and this one's really kind of too bad, because cereal boxes. Do you remember toys and cereal boxes? I mean, I remember picking up cereal growing up, and there'd be a toy at the bottom of the bag. Well, oftentimes the toy would be outside the plastic bag. Every once in a while, it was actually in the cereal, and I would actually remember digging in my hand in the cereal and picking it out. But I remember toys and cereal boxes. I don't see toys and cereal boxes anymore. There's one exception. A couple months ago, I saw there was like Honey Nut Cheerios, and I picked up that had like a Star Wars pen in it. But other than that, I don't see toys and cereals anymore. I think they've cut costs, and it's really a shame because cereal's not cheap to begin with. But yeah, that's really unfortunate for kids today, because that was cool collecting them all, stuff like that. Next one is obviously internet was huge. When I grew up, I didn't have the internet. It wasn't around really up until the 90s, really. And I remember my first memory of the internet was my buddy, my neighbor, a good friend of mine, Craig. He had Prodigy, which is like the very first versions of the internet, right? And you could go on, and there's all text-based websites, stuff like that. And in order to sign in, you had to actually disconnect your phone line and connect to your Prodigy, your internet. And I remember I would try calling him, and lines would be busy. I'm like, oh, there's Craig on his internet again. And it was actually had a dial-up. Remember? And then I remember first time my parents got it was AOL, got American Online, and that had to been like in the 93-ish time, early 90s. And just a lot different. Obviously now we take internet for granted. Speaking of phones, we have internet on our phones. We pretty much have a pocket PC in our phones now, and we can Wikipedia. What would we do without Wikipedia? Next one is music. Music has changed growing up from the 80s to now. I'm not talking about just the genres of music. I'm talking about the format of music. When I grew up, it was all cassette tapes, little record players as well. Not little record players, but we had a little collection of records as well. My dad has a huge record collection. Still love records, and in fact, records are kind of coming back. And my wife was telling me that cassette tapes are actually coming back too, which a lot of bands are making cassette tapes now, which is interesting. But now it's all digital music, where you go on iTunes and download a song, put it on your iPod or iPad or your phone, whatever. And where back then you had a physical release copy of an album, and in order to listen to a song, they would release some singles, but you'd actually buy the whole album. Now you can just purchase singles, which is nice. So I guess it's an advantage plus modern day. But I do miss the physical aspect of music. And of course, they still have CDs, but I guarantee you, less than 5 years, CDs will be a thing of the past. It's all going to be digital, unfortunately. Next thing is video games. Obviously, have changed. Speaking of digital, a lot of games are going on digital. Steam, for example, a lot of the games you get on Xbox and PS4, etc., are all you can download games. There are obviously still physical games are available through disc format. But I'm also, what's different about gaming now compared to back in the day when I was growing up was the local multiplayer aspect, the multiplayer aspect in general. When I was growing up, we would play local player. So especially the N64 days, mid-90s, we would play GoldenEye, Mario Kart, all those games. Four of us would sit in a room and play together in the same room, side by side, talking smack to each other, where now it's all done online and through a headpiece that you don't hardly see the guy's face, and it's just kids talking smack. So that's certainly changed. I miss that social interactive, being next to this person and playing it, see their reaction and your reaction. That's really unfortunate. I wish we could go back into local multiplayer because that was fun having people over. Give people to come over and hang out or vice versa. So that's changed. The last one I want to talk about are movies. And not just, I'm not talking about genres of movies, whatever, but because there's still action movies and whatever, just like back in the day. But I'm talking about formats, just like with music. I had VHS, and I remember going to Blockbuster and popping in the VHS cassette tape and having to, rewind the movie. And every once in a while, people wouldn't rewind it, and you'd have just, it's annoying how to rewind it. And you have to watch previews and fast forward to the previews. And that's so much different than now, because now you just go on Netflix or you go to, Redbox, you can get a disc for a day. But Netflix, you can just stream it right there, which I guess is a lot more convenient. You don't have a physical copy of the movie itself. Netflix has changed. They change movies all, every time, TV shows, etc. Very, very often, I've noticed, which is good and bad. But that's definitely different. So I'm curious what you guys have to say about then and now. When you guys grew up? Like when you guys grew up, whether it was the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, 50s even, whatever, even before that, let me know what changes you've seen from now to when you grew up. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you guys subscribing. Love to see your comments. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.